I just finished 10 days in silence. This beautiful, essentially. It was wonderful though.
Hey you guys, this is Miriam with Full Soul Travel, and my series is really going to be about my experience living in India for 12 weeks back in March. And I want to talk to you guys about my experience with Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditation is a silent meditation course or silent retreat. So what that means, it is 10 days, it was actually 11 days, but it's 10 days of silent meditation. And they do noble silence. So noble silence means there is no talking to other people, there is no eye contact, there is no gestures. It is really about you. It's really about you going within yourself and not being distracted by the outside world or other people. They also take away your valuables, so you don't have your laptop, you don't have your cell phone, you don't have any books, you don't have any pens or pencils or papers to write, like journals to write with, you don't have your camera. You pretty much just have you in your clothes. And I got to Jaipur and I hung out in Jaipur for a day, half a day actually, and then I went to this Vipassana meditation, and it was pretty cool leaving Jaipur, because Jaipur is a busy city like Delhi, not as busy, but it was pretty chaotic, you know, it's India. And as I was taking the cab up, you kind of descend up and then it slowly gets quiet and like all the people fade away, and then it's just like all nature, and you see monkeys and like all this vegetation, and then you end up at the meditation place. So when you get there, you register and you're allowed to speak to people when you first arrive. And they have the tourists, the non-Indians on one side to register, and then the Indians, the native Indians, the Indians on the other side. And you register, and then they also have the men and women are separate. So after registration, then you guys all sit in a group and they kind of explain what's going to happen over the next 10 days. So you all get your own cell, called a cell, your own, you know, living spaces with a roommate. The room was very basic. It was like concrete slat beds with like a really thin foam, not even foam, like a really thin mattress made out of cotton or something, like something you put over like a bench chair outside. And there was a bathroom area with a sink and then a shower, Indian shower, which was like two like tubs, and then you for your water, and I'll explain that later. And then an actual toilet, which was a Western style toilet with water spout thing to wipe out. Yeah. So when I first got there, I remember asking the girl, was there any tissue in there? And she was like, nah. Well, she didn't say no. She was like, no, you know, I'm Indian, we don't use that. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm gonna need some tissue. So they have a store where you can buy different things. You can buy an alarm clock, you can buy tissue, you can buy stuff for laundry, oils for your body, like just basic stuff that you need that maybe you didn't bring. So I got a bunch of stuff and, you know, set myself up in the room. And the first night is when you started the noble silence and the meditation. So every day you wake up, there's like a chime, a big chime that goes off, and you wake up at 4 a.m. and then the first meditation starts at 4:30. And we're all in a huge meditation room, and you either sit down on the floor, cross-legged Indian style, or you sit in a chair. I already knew I was super out of shape. I wasn't even like, I could barely even sit like the Indian style cross-legged. and my knees, my joints were hurt. Like I just had like all these issues. I was like, I can't do that for 10 hours. So it's 10 hours a day of meditating. So I sat in a chair, and it was like a wooden, bigger chair lowered. And yeah, I just kind of sat up like this and you start your meditation. So the schedule is 10 hours a day. So it's from 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. is the first 2 hours of meditation. 6:30 to 8 is breakfast and time for, you know, taking a shower or washing your clothes or resting. And then from, I want to say from 8 to 1 is another block of meditation. And then from 1 to 2, I'm going off of memory, so like 1 to 2 is like lunch, and then from 2 to 5 it's another block of meditation, and then you get a like evening snack, and that I believe is for 45 minutes, and then from there, or maybe it's an hour, I don't remember, and then from there you, from 6 to 9:30 is another block of meditation. So it's pretty much an all-day thing, and the first 3 days for me were absolutely the hardest. I'm not going to go into details about the technique of Vipassana meditation. If you're interested in that, I will highly recommend you experiencing that for yourself. But I will say the first 3 days, the instructor, which was via audio because it's the guy who teaches it has passed away, and it was really simple. It was like, focus on your breathing, listen to your breath, you know, and then you're like in a dark room, and that is one of the hardest things to do when you're doing it all day, to not think. And I had all these thoughts coming up, like, why are you doing this? Like, you can't even, like, not even think. Like, all these negative thoughts that were just coming up, and I was just like, by the third day, which was the hardest, and I was in physical pain, like my legs were hurting, my feet and calves were swollen, like huge. I've never even seen that before. I was in there like, why am I in India meditating for 10 hours a day? I was like, I have lost my mind. This is crazy. Why am I here? I was like having all these crazy, I was like, yo, I am literally like in India meditating for 10 hours a day. This is the epitome of me losing my mind. And I was like, okay, I've lost my mind. Like, what do you do now? You've lost your mind. How do you find it? I was like flipping out the first 3 days because it was so hard. I could not just focus on my breathing. I had all these thoughts that just came up. And I realized one of the benefits for me through the process of Vipassana meditation is I really got to see my own self. And I really got to see how I think. You think you know how you think, or even if you think that you're a positive person, no, I'm not positive. I want to be positive, but like in actuality, I'm so hard on myself. And I realized that within the first 3 days of this practice is how much I beat my own self up. And eventually, you know, I got past that, and by day 6, I had this beautiful moment of like just pure bliss where I was able to meditate for an hour, just beaming off of light inside of me. And it was just so warm and beautiful. But that didn't last long. It was like for a moment. And that, you know, that's one of the things that you learn through the practice of meditation, the ebbs and flows. You're gonna have moments of highs, you're gonna have moments of lows, and you're gonna have the in-betweens. And it's not always gonna be this like beaming light of deep spirituality and deep awakening. When you meditate, sometimes you're gonna have darkness in that meditation. So I learned to kind of deal with the duality of life and within myself, the light and darkness within myself. The whole place is pretty beautiful. You have monkeys, because there's a monkey temple right next door, so you literally are watching monkeys monkeying around. Like, I've never seen that up close. It was dope. It was like a bird sanctuary. You have all these beautiful birds all over the place. There was beautiful like families of peacocks. Like, what? Like, it was insane. Like, but back to the meditation. So one of the things about Vipassana meditation is what it does, it helps to eradicate your negative thoughts. And I believe that's why I was swelling up, is because my body was almost like it's a form of detox. It's like the way the technique is taught, which I'm not gonna go into it, it literally trains you to literally pull out the negative thoughts and live in the moment, be in the present, be in the now. So that experience was life-changing for me. I do not regret it. I'm so thankful that that was my first India experience, first impression of India, especially because India is deeply rooted in spirituality. And it really set the tone for the rest of my 12 weeks there, or 11 weeks there. Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this video, my little story time / informational about Vipassana meditation, I highly recommend, but I plan on doing it at least once a year. I highly recommend looking into Vipassana meditation. It is donation only, and I'll leave the link below where you can sign up or just do your own research about how to go to Vipassana meditation. You do not have to go to India, but you can. And I went to Jaipur, which is, from what I found out through other Indians there on my trip, it's one of the big, I don't think it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest places and one of the most famous places that I literally in random picked. And because I decided not to go to Delhi, decided not to go to the one in Delhi, and I randomly picked Jaipur. But you can do it. It's all over the world. I mean, if you're here in the States, there's plenty all over the States that you can go to. If you're in Canada, Mexico, like literally all over the world. Another thing I want to touch on that I didn't touch on is the food. So everything is pretty much provided for you because it is donation only, and there are volunteers. Everyone there is volunteering their time. So the people who are serving, the people who are waking you up in the morning, these are all former students who now come back and serve to keep the tradition going, to keep it going, so it could be not essentially free to get in. You don't pay until the end if you want to pay, if you want to donate. So the other thing about this experience was really my first taste at Indian food, authentic Indian food. And it was interesting. You line up, I mean, a lot of it was like jail-like to me. You line up, they give you these steel plates that is Indian style, that has, you know, a couple different compartments to put your food in, and then all the food is almost like buffet style, and you go in and you pour your food. But I grew up eating Indian food. I've always liked it, but I didn't realize how much Americanized Indian food I have been eating versus what real Indian food was. And the first couple of days, the food was really good. I was really enjoying it until this one morning I was in line and I was like trying everything. And I sat down and I was like right underneath this huge sign that said, "Do not waste food." And I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. You know how like in those movies where you see the person and they're like sitting under the clock and they're sweating and they're like like that was me. I was like, I'm like looking up and it's like, do not waste food. And I have all this food that's literally disgusting. I can't eat it. I'm not even like an ungrateful thing. My body just rejects. I don't even know what the flavors were, but my body literally could not swallow any of it. And I'm like sitting there like, oh my God, how am I gonna do? And I'm like force feeding myself, like literally force feeding myself this Indian food. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so gross. So then I was like, okay, now I have some pockets, and I started to put like the food in my pocket because I'm like, I'm just gonna throw it away when I go back to my room. And then I noticed like other people walking by, going into the kitchen area because you do your own dishes, and they have food on their plate. And I'm like, it says do not waste food, but they have food on their plate. So I get up and I'm like, this is like probably like day 3. And I'm like, what? Like, and I watch the girl and she dumps the food in the trash. I'm like, oh my God, there's trash cans. So I throw it away. But I think my experience doing Vipassana in India is going to be very different from someone doing it in the States or even like in other countries because of the traditions, because you're in India, because there's so much history, because of the food, because there's like all these things that makes it a very, very unique experience, which I have no regrets about experiencing in India. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a challenge for me. It taught me a lot about myself. I really, really had to kind of step up within myself. And yeah, so I recommend Vipassana meditation. It helped me deepen my level of spirituality, helped me become more self-aware, and it really, really helped me on my journey of self realization and exploration in India, of being in the moment and being in the present and really being exactly where I was. And I know this in this era of technology and social media, it's so challenging, especially if you're on vacation, for you to kind of pull away from social media. But it was really nice not talking to people, not having that break of, not even like even in the sense of not having someone to bounce experiences off of that same day. Like, oh, did you experience this while you're meditating? You couldn't have that. So you really had to like process within yourself what you experienced and learn how to almost be your own friend and not constantly bouncing ideas off of other people. And this is probably the biggest benefit for myself. This is something that I do now. It's like I have this knowing within myself that I don't really, and not to say I don't need people, because I do, but I don't need validation from other people. I don't need approval from other people to do what I know within myself to do. So that is something that going to India, doing the Vipassana meditation course is a huge takeaway, something that almost grounded me within myself. It's like I am more secure, I'm more of who I am, and I don't make any apologies for who I am. I'm just gonna stand tall like a tree by a river, who never weathers and always prospers. So peace and love, you guys. All right, so we just completed our 10-day course. How's everyone feeling?
Beautiful.
So good.
Yes.
Hi.
Glad to be leaving, right?
Oh yeah.
It's been intense, but it's been a great experience. You should try it for sure.